Today I'm going to show you how we save the seeds from our pumpkins, also let you know when it's the best time to pick them and a few other tips as well. G'day folks, it's Rob here. Had a couple of people ask how we save the seeds from our pumpkins, so I thought I'd bring you along and share with you the hows and the whys of how we do it here. To begin with, when I'm looking for a pumpkin in particular that I would like to save seeds from, I'm looking for desirable characteristics. Now, mainly I'm looking for a nice large fruit. The reason being is, being an heirloom, or the variety we're growing here today is the Kent pumpkin. Being an heirloom variety, it will pass its genetic information and its characteristics down from one generation to another. So if I can find a plant in particular that gives me the nice fruit that I'm after, I can then save seeds, and I know that the plants down the line have a better chance of having those same characteristics. Now, when it comes to pumpkins, I like a nice thick meaty wall of flesh on the inside and a very small seed cavity. That way you know you're getting good bang for your buck, so to speak. We did have a vine out the front that produced a couple of pumpkins, but we found the pumpkins overall were fairly small and they had a very large seed cavity in the center and very thin wall flesh, so we decided not to save seeds from those guys. The large 8 kilogram one that we nipped off definitely suited the bill. Bianca and I cut it open and we saw it had nice thick flesh wall. So to collect the seeds, all we pretty much all did was scoop it out using our hands and spoons. The seeds were then placed into a bowl and were given a good rinse out under the tap and the sink, just to make sure that any of the slime on the outside of the seed had washed off. I also went through and picked out any of the very thin looking seeds that didn't look like they'd been pollinated correctly, and I discarded them. Then the remaining seeds were just spread out onto a dinner plate, popped into a cool dark area and left to dry for around about 7 to 10 days from memory. After the seeds are dried on the plate, I like to pop them in a zip seal bag, but I still don't do the top up. I leave it another week or so just to let any moisture out that may be trapped in a few of the seeds. We also pop a label in there. As you can see, Bianca's popped one in this one. It's got Kent in the top corner here, and then we've got Mega Pumpkin, and then just the month and the year. So these seeds here, now that they're dried correctly and if they're stored properly as well, they should be good to germinate 5 years down the track, if not longer. I have read online that they, are viable anywhere up to 10 years if stored in the right conditions. So when it comes to saving seeds from other members of the Cucurbitaceae family, like squash, watermelons, zucchinis and whatnot, pretty much will follow the same as what I showed you before. Just scoop the seeds out and let them dry out. With cucumbers, I treat them a little bit differently. I like to scoop the seeds out, and they've got a little gel sac around them, but you can check it out in a little clip up there. I just like to ferment off that gel sac. It just makes them look nicer when you're sharing the seeds around. So pumpkins can cross-pollinate within their own groups within the Cucurbitaceae family. I've popped a link in the description below, a bit of a guideline, and it will show you which groups within the Cucurbitaceae family will cross-pollinate with the others. Now with us here, I don't know what the guys are growing down the street, so we've only got the one variety, but if I wanted to make sure they did stay true to type, what I could do is grab the male flower, hand pollinate the female flower first thing in the morning, and then I can wrap a rubber band or maybe a little bit of string around the top of the female flower to make sure no other pollinators can get in there and basically end up giving me a bit of a hybrid of sorts. So that's just one little point that might help you out. Another question I've been asked when I posted pics of these guys online is, when do you know it's ready to take your pumpkin off the vine? Now with these Kents and also the Queensland Blues and the butternut pumpkins, other people call them butternut squash, I wait for the stem that joins the fruit onto the vine to go brown, and that's pretty much all when I just break them off. The next step I like to do is put them out into the sun. I use the ironing board behind me here. Normally it doesn't have a nice sarong on it. Leave them out in the sun during the daylight hours, and what that does is it hardens up the skin and gives it a bit of a protective coating so you can store it in the pantry for months on end. We have had some last over 8 months, but I have found that the flesh inside starts to dry out a little bit. I'd say pretty much all anywhere up to about 4 to 5 months, maybe 6, and you've still got nice sweet flesh inside. Just another little tip quickly, if you've got very moist ground and your pumpkin fruit is sitting on it all the time, you can end up with some gnarly looking disfigurements and discolorations on the skin. It does help if you consider paver or something that doesn't hold a lot of moisture underneath it, just to separate it from that wet ground, and you'll end up with a nice clean skin looking pumpkin, especially especially good if you want to show them or give them away to someone else and, you know, have a nice pristine looking bit of fruit. So it is pretty easy to save seeds from these pumpkins, as well as the other cucurbits like zucchini and squash and whatnot. You only need one fruit full of seeds to get more than enough for yourself, as well as enough to share around with family and friends, and maybe some excess to post on an online seed sharing group if you're a member. If you found this clip useful at all, feel free to share it around. It might help someone else out. Also too, I'd love to have you subscribe by clicking on that little button up there, and you'll get notification whenever we post a clip on saving seeds or growing plants, setting up garden beds, or maybe even the aquaponics, and you can come along and see what's going on in our small little urban farm. I do hope everyone is well and happy, and I will catch you next clip. Cheers, folks. More ending up on the floor than on the bench.
I was going to say, my way is a bit cleaner.
Yes, your way's cleaner. A little bit stickier, but cleaner.